Hey, what's up guys? I'm Joe and this is a Bradford fence. So as far as what to look out for when you're selecting a steel fence is, one would be the quality of the material and would be the process of the fabrication or manufacturing and actually where it's coming from. So as we discussed, this is an Ameristar product. It comes from Tulsa, so it is made here in the US. The galvanized core protects from any rust issues, and then it has an extremely good, what they call an E-coat powder coat, that's going to protect against rust, is going to hold up against fading and peeling and cracking. But there are some other products out there that are typically an import product that are made overseas and brought in. Some of those have had issues with peeling. We can show you an example of that, of just the paint not being a good finish and peeling right off. So with that, you want to see what product you're actually purchasing when you're comparing prices. Sometimes the steel fences are presented as just a generic steel, or maybe even under the branded names of like an Ameristar, but somebody may be actually selling or installing a different import product. So you just want to watch out what you're truly getting when you're selecting the steel material. Now, the next into actual options, the typical heights would be a 4, 5, or 6 foot tall in a residential setting. Now if you're commercial, you can get 7, 8, even taller. This particular fence right here is 5 and is a good height for dogs and kids. 4 foot's very popular as well, but a 5 is a good middle of the road that if your dog is a jumper or something like that, in most cases they can't jump over that. So that's your height options. There's also 3 different main style options. This is what we call the Genesis, which has a picket that sticks up above this top rail and then has this finial top. There's a couple different finial options for the Genesis style. Then there's also the classic style, which is similar but then has just a more generic press blade top of this picket. And then there's a Majestic, which is a very popular style that is the smooth top. So if you can imagine the top of this rail being at the top and it's just a smooth top. So those are the main 3 style options. The other thing to consider with a steel fence are whether it will rack. So a racking or non-rackable section would mean that it can either, a rackable section would mean that it can, as you can see like here, there's a slight change in grade or slope, and we're able to follow that and make a nice good flow of this line. A non-rackable section would be different from that in that it's a rigid section. It can't be adjusted to the slope, and you would have like stair steps and gaps as you were making your way down these elevation changes or slopes. So that's kind of in a nutshell the options you have for height, style, and whether your fence or steel fence in particular is going to be rackable or non-rackable. All right, so in regards to HOA and permitting considerations, this job's a good example because as we are on the golf course, they have particular specifications on the type of fence, being this particular steel fence, the height of fence, that they do specify that this needs to be a 5 foot tall, and even the style, they specify that it needs to be this Genesis style with the finial. So that's something to consider when you're planning your project, is that you'll want to do some research on any HOA restrictions or requirements there. Also permitting, if your city or municipality requires a permit for fence building. That's something that we can help you with and guide you through of where you're located. If it requires a permit, then typically we will help you get that permit. Then we can also help guide you through the process of any HOA restrictions or approvals that you'll need for your fence. All right, so for some just highlights of this job, there's a unique feature back here on the back because of having the green back here, they wanted to be able to have a removable section that they could in the evenings potentially go out or chip onto the green. So with this, we put some hardware or some hinges on both sides to where you can actually just lift this section off, set it aside, do what you need to do, and then put it right back in place. All right, so one other interesting thing with this project was we were needing to run the fence here to butt up to the deck, but at some point in the near future, they're gonna be reworking the deck, so we didn't want to do too much work between here and the house. But with the dogs, they wanted to be able to let the dogs out the back porch, but we had this staircase that was wide open. So in order to keep them contained, we made this little gate that integrated with the existing deck, and we set a post that allows them to come through here, but shut this off and keep the dogs contained back in the backyard. To start with the steel, it's a 3.5 foot tall steel. So with this steel material, the most typical heights are 4, 5, and 6. Now with this part of town, they do require a lower fence, so we had to go with the 3.5 foot tall, which is available, it's just a special order. Here, the privacy, but then also the security was a concern, so they wanted to be able to fence off and utilize this front yard space. So this steel material was a great option for that. This is a steel product that's made actually here in the US. It's made up in Tulsa, so not far from here. And they're the largest manufacturer of ornamental steel fence in North America. And so the benefits of this, if you were comparing it to like a custom made section or a traditional wrought iron, one, this is more cost effective compared to those. These are a pre-made section. So these are manufactured, like we talked, in Tulsa. So they make these sections beforehand. So the cost savings there is a benefit. Also the maintenance is a benefit. So these are, the steel starts with a galvanized steel. So it's a really high quality galvanized steel. And then they have a E-coat, powder coat on top of that galvanized. So you've got multiple layers of rust protection there with the galvanized plus the powder coat. So this actually carries a limited lifetime warranty, whereas if you're comparing that to a custom or wrought iron that either is painted or powder coated, obviously the paint is going to be more maintenance. You're going to be looking at touch-ups, probably yearly on something like that. And then you could also have a custom build with powder coat, which is going to be somewhere in the middle there. It's going to last longer, but even with that, the powder coat on a section that's custom is probably going to have to touch up somewhere in the maybe 5 to 7 year range, whereas this being produced in a controlled environment, in a warehouse, in a manufacturing facility with the galvanized, is going to have a superior powder coat and finish. We love that about that. The only limitations with that, there's several styles of this, but you have those few handful of styles to pick from, but they have a lot of good versatile styles that you can go with this. But if you need something more specific and more custom, then there are those avenues of a custom steel. But we do a ton of this. We love this manufacturer and have had a lot of great success with it. The other thing to note, in our area, the steel is most popular. There are also aluminum options of an ornamental fence like this, but with us in this area, we're not on the coast where you've got salt spray and that sort of thing where you would need the aluminum, so steel is much more popular. But if you were comparing this to an aluminum fence of the same grade and style, the steel benefit is also the durability of it. So the steel is going to be more rigid and more strong than an aluminum. And there are some good aluminum products out there. If you're looking at aluminum, you need to make sure that it's a structural aluminum to get the strength that you need. But even comparing a structural aluminum to this particular steel material, the steel is going to be stronger, more sturdy, and long lasting. It's going to take an impact a lot better from either a lawnmower or kid or ball or whatever than the aluminum, where it's going to tend to bend or fold before this metal steel would. Again, I can't stress, this is probably one of our lowest maintenance options with that galvanized and the powder coat. This, like we talked, is domestically made here in the US, but there are a couple of copycat manufacturers that are import products, and they look very similar, and sometimes we found that contractors will sell those as almost presenting them as this same product, but they're very similar. The hesitancy or caution that we have with those is those particular products, one of which had some really bad powder coat problems where almost just entire sections of the paint would peel off, and it was a big mess and would look horrible. So I haven't mentioned it up till now, and we're not sponsored by them. We just have used this product for many, many years and just believe deeply in the quality of it. But this product is an Ameristar product, so Ameristar is the manufacturer, and this line of steel fence that they have is Montage. So the Montage refers to their residential line, and then they have various styles. This style is called the Classic, which has this press blade finial on top. Then there's also Genesis and Majestic are two of their other most popular styles. And then they have, like I said, the Montage is residential. They have several different commercial and industrial lines as well. So just so you know, when you're comparing different products and name brands and things like that out there in the market, there's many options, but we would strongly suggest Ameristar. They're a great company, and they make a very, very quality product that I think you'd be happy with. And this is a pickleball court, and we did an 8-foot tall black vinyl coated chain link fence around here to help contain and put a perimeter here around the pickleball court. The height gives it to where it'll protect from balls going over. This is a multi-use court, so they've got the basketball goal, so to help prevent balls bouncing over, we went with the full 8-foot tall. This is also black vinyl coated chain link, so you get the real nice aesthetic of the black, but there's also a vinyl coating on that chain link. So as you're running around, and if you bump up against it, it's got a nice smooth surface where it's not a rough, gritty galvanized like with the silver or galvanized chain link. Here we went with an additional mid-rail. So one, this gives added strength and support to the fence with the height that it has, but also as people are running around and balls are bouncing into it, it's gonna give it some rigidity and some durability there. We did this project for the developer of this neighborhood. This is a neighborhood where they've got walking trails and all that. This is one of the things they wanted to do with the pickleball basketball court. And so we did that for the developer, Hines Homes. This project took a handful of weeks. Now typically a project like this would take about 3 days. So typically you'd come in the first day and set all your posts. Then that second day you're just letting the concrete cure and harden. Then the third day you come back and we would put up all the framework and the chain link and the gates, and you're done, complete. This one was unique with the fact that we were coordinating with a couple of different contractors, the concrete people and the court people that were doing the epoxy and the painting. Typically this would be a 3-day project. So with this particular chain link, it's a black vinyl coated chain link. So what that means is you've got essentially the core of this is an 11 gauge galvanized metal chain link. So if you imagine the silver gray traditional chain link, it's got that at the core of this. And then they go over that with a vinyl coating. So the metal of this chain link has a nice vinyl coating on there, which one makes for a good, nice look with the black color. It blends in, with the surroundings and the trees and all that. It also creates a smoother finish. So this is a nice smooth vinyl. So as you're in here like playing, if you got pushed up against the fence, whatever, whether you're playing pickleball or basketball, this is gonna be smooth. It's not gonna catch your shirt, scratch your arm. Whereas sometimes on the galvanized, you can have, not real often, but in some places it can be a little bit gritty. You could even have a little bit of spurs on it. So that's really helpful and important in a setting like this with like a sports court
or like daycares and things like that where kids are going to be on it, the black vinyl coated is a really good choice for those applications. So we did this project in 2 phases because of the concrete court, and they didn't want a weird gap between the fence and the concrete. So we came in before anything was here. They did have the outline measured out and marked out, but we put our post in, and then we let them come in and do the concrete pad and all of the surfacing and everything for the court. And then we came back afterwards to put up the framework and do the fence so that it's all one nice finished product. So let's take a look at some of the components of this fence. So this is obviously a chain link. This here is a termination post, which is gonna be any end where you've got like a gate here or just an end of the fence, or it'd be the same for a corner post. So these termination posts are bigger posts, so they're bigger in diameter than the mid post or the line post is what we would refer to them as. And these are what have all the connections for the fence rail end here, and that fits over the end of that rail. And then this here is a brace band, so the brace band's attached to the rail ends, and you've got another rail end right here for this mid rail, and again another brace band. If you see, the brace band has a smaller tongue or lip on it, and it's actually centered on the post to run in line with those rails. These posts in the middle of a run would be mid post, or what we would call a line post, because they're in line with the fence. And so they've got different hardware on them as well. If you didn't have the mid rail, you would just have this line post and this loop cap, which is just a cap that allows that top rail to run through. And then if you follow that down here, at any end or corner, it terminates with a brace band here and a rail end, and that's how you do either a top rail or a mid rail. You can see this mid rail also has a brace band and a rail end. Then here on any corner or end, these termination posts, these bands you can see have a longer lip on them. So those are a tension band. So the tension band, it's offset to be in line with the chain link. And so this is used with the tension bar. So this vertical piece right here that it's bolted to is a tension bar, and that is what you use at the end of your chain link runs, and that's what you pull and put tension on the chain link with, and then you bolt them to these tension bands. And then these tension bands are every probably 16, 18 inches. So this is an 8-foot tall fence. So you always got 8, whatever the height is, -1 is the number of tension bands that you're gonna have. So you got 7 on here that hold the tension of the chain link. This, we refer to this as the chain link fabric, and in chain link, it's always under tension. So you wanna pull this really tight so that you don't have a lot of slack in there. And that's what gives the strength and the finish of the fence. So you're pulling to tension this, and then you bolt this here with your tension brackets, and that's what actually holds the fence in place. After that, you're finishing it off with your ties. So every foot or so, you're on the top rail and the middle rail, you're gonna have these wire ties, and that keeps everything tight and secure to these rails, and that's holding everything together. You've also got wire ties on your line post. So every mid post or line post, you're gonna have every couple feet have a wire tie to keep everything tight, nice and tight and secure to the line post. You've also got support on the bottom right here. So similar to the ties and the rails, you've got a tension wire. So a bottom tension wire is typical on most chain link fences, and it's a wire run from each termination post or end post or corner, and it's under tension as well, so it's tight. And then it's got these hog rings every 16 inches to a foot or so, and actually holds the bottom of that fence tight in place so that you couldn't just push this bottom way out. So that keeps everything put together and in line. The other thing that is on these mid rail So this would be referred to as a line rail clamp. And so this is a specific bracket that holds these mid-rail at the line post. So those run in and they're bolted. You can see it's bolted through there to hold these mid-rail in place. All right, let's talk about the gate over here. On this setup, we've got 2 single gates. So both of these are single gates. They elected to put one on both sides, which is smart. If you got balls going either direction, you got easy access. So on this gate, you've got your hinges, your hinge components. So this is a beefier setup, more of a commercial setup. So a typical commercial hinge is gonna be what we call a bulldog hinge. And these are very, very common. They're really heavy duty. So they work by clamping on to the post, and then you've got this sleeve that goes around the upright of the gate, and then this goes, well, there's a peg here that pivots on this, so the gate itself actually turns just inside of this hinge there, and that's the way that it is held in place and swings freely. Then here, just a typical fork latch with a chain link. So you've got your latch hanger here, your fork that latches onto the post, and then you've got a spot where if it needed to be locked, you could put a padlock or combo lock to secure that. And if there was something in there, even if it's just like a carabiner clip, sometimes people with dogs, they don't want to have it locked up for security, but they don't want their dog to be able to just like hit that up. So you can put like a carabiner in there, and that keeps that from being lifted and being opened and open the gate. For more fences like this, go to bradfordfencing.net, use our online estimator, and get an instant quote on a fence just like this.